Hey, everybody. Welcome to day 10, our final day of this month's intensive. I'd like to use today to sort of integrate um, the basics of this understanding. Um, so we're not going to go to a real squishy, touchy-feely meditation in the beginning, but maybe while I recount some of the basic points, make yourself comfortable. If you want to sit for a few moments with your eyes closed, if that's relaxing, feel free to do that. But I want to lay out two deeply intertwined points and maybe consider them like braiding them into your um, your current understanding, so to speak. And I'd like today's discussion maybe touch on them and see what else they bring forward for us. So these 2 points in no particular order. First of all, there is no such actual thing as a separate, limited self, a separate me, what we sometimes call a body mind. And one of the main implications of seeing that is that accordingly, there's nothing lacking. There's no need for attainment or acquisition in order to enhance or defend against this idea of a separate self being a victim of circumstances. Then the other interrelated point is all of life is experienced here and now. And probably one of the most useful and profound implications of that is that hence there's no need to try to aim ourselves toward a better future where something is different. So again, these 2 points, there is no separate, limited me. And the entirety of experience is experienced here and now. And what I'd hoped to do during this particular 10 days is to anchor those points to something that is so stable and consistent that each time we just connected with that stable consistency, those points and the implications would be available to us in our understanding. And to reiterate what that most basic stable point is, something you all easily reaffirmed a few times, is the knowledge that I exist. And that this existence is aware. But easily without a lot of strenuous mental processing, you can come to the knowing of something I've always already known behind all circumstances. I exist, and this existence is aware of the entirety of my experience. Then any other implication of this non-dual understanding should be also available to us. So let that sink in for a moment or two and see what comes up, if it elicits questions or if roadblocks seem to arise in your mind as to what's blocking you from seeing that. These are the kinds of things that I think will be valuable to deal with on this concluding day. You don't need to wait for me to call you back from the meditation this time. If something occurs to you, feel free to just put it out there.
What's occurring to me at the moment is seems to me, you can correct me if this is not the case, but it seems to me attention has two possibilities, like where we place attention can be either on the content of awareness or on awareness itself.
Cool. And when you say on awareness itself, would that be synonymous with what we sometimes say about bringing attention back to its source?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a good reminder to say it like that. And then it just seems like, because no one ever taught us to do differently, like I'll have to say for myself, right? Like spent my whole life paying attention to content and primarily forgetting about awareness or not seeing it or so heavily veiled or whatever. And so it feels now like the remembering, almost like a retraining of the mind to just as often as I can remember that I am, or that I am awareness, and really feel into the open, spacious, limitless, non-judging quality of that as my true nature.
And are you saying that this is actually an ongoing thing for you now, or is this an ideal you're still?
Well, I mean, I still forget, right? But more and more and more and more, you know, and that it feels like as long as the mind is pointed towards awareness, back towards awareness, back towards source, there's one feeling sense, which feels pretty spacious and open, and when there is forgetting, and then I get caught up in whatever, like whatever. And then often, I mean, sometimes that can be fun stuff, right? But a lot of times it doesn't feel so good, or it's certainly always temporary. And so it just feels more and more. And I think greatly as a result of the 10 days in a row kind of thing, because even though I haven't been on the calls, I have been listening every day. Just keep pointing back to my true nature. And, and I know it's like, I know it's not about getting to a better place or all those things, but it does seem to feel a lot better.
Cool. And not that it's required, but if you happen to have in mind any recent specific examples of how this happened, that would be interesting too.
Yeah. Well, I'd say it happens all the time, right? But what pops into my mind, just one recent example was, trying to think if this is even a good example, but I have this younger sister, and she and I were talking, and she was telling me about this, this guy, this neurosurgeon in Atlanta who had just inherited a lot of money, and he had just been browsing Facebook, and he just really liked her smile, and it was just like all this, and I was like, scam, and there was a lot of judgment that came up initially. And then I just was able to remember my true nature as awareness. And I just really noticed that awareness did not have an opinion. It's like, it didn't mean that I didn't still try to encourage her to not fall for something that seemed fake. But it was without the same level of judgment. If that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
And then it felt so much, like being really judgmental of another person doesn't feel good. It does not feel good inside. It feels terrible, really. So it was like, yeah, it's just interesting.
And we often hear that judgment, being judgmental doesn't feel good. And so there's a lot of there's probably a lot of books and sections of self-help books that talk about dropping judgment.
Right. But
beyond it being an activity, and just check if what I'm saying is true. Not if it just sounds like a nice thing, but see if it's true. Is it possible that one of the reasons judgment doesn't feel good is because judgment is just the specific form of us expressing to ourselves that, oh, if that thing that person is doing doesn't change, there's a limit to my own happiness.
Yes.
Yeah. And when that drops away because of understanding of who we are, the wisdom behind why that specific thing might be a good or not good thing for the person we're engaged with can still come out. But now it's just this fresh, clean, I'm dispensing wisdom, but my own knowing of the piece of who I am is in no way dampened by the outcome.
Yeah. And that just seems to be such a key to peace and happiness, is not being attached to any outcome ever.
Yeah. And then so all of these have layers to them. Like even being attached to outcome or not being attached to outcome as an activity might be one tick too far, because our thoughts come and they go, and sometimes the thoughts seem to be attachment to outcome, or they seem to be judgmental, or whatever it is. But the remedy isn't in, like the other self-help modalities will tell us, in doing the activity different or dropping the activity. The remedy comes from, recognizing who I am. Then even this judgmental or attachment to outcome thought form that arises can be just as it is, because all of that is just the movement of this awareness that I eternally am.
Yeah, it, like an analogy that might work is like when we're dreaming, when we fall asleep and we dream, like if all we wanted or what we thought we needed for happiness was to only have good dreams and not have any bad, and then, but then we realize we're just dreaming, like we're just in it. We're just in it. We are it. It's not even we're in it. We are it. I don't know, it's wild. It's like, yeah.
Cool.
And the other thing, I know Jimmy's been doing a lot of talking this week, so I'm off the hook a little bit. Something about, and we've talked about this, like about there being no separation between the experience and the experiencer. And I've just been, when I can remember to do it, I've been trying to like, kind of like, how intimate can I be with any particular moment? Like just even I could, in this moment, how intimate can I be with sights and sound and feelings and thoughts and just whatever is arising?
Can you explain what you mean by being intimate with it as an activity?
Well, I think what those words do when I say them to myself is I'm not in resistance.
Oh, okay. I see.
I mean, I don't know if that's a good explanation, but it feels like on some level what we're all, just as humans and maybe all beings, are looking for is connection. And we're like mistakenly looking for it outside of ourselves. And it's like just a stepping back and acknowledging the complete connection.
Yeah. When you look at your computer right now, or whatever, okay, do you have to fight resistance in order to see the computer, or do you just see it?
I just see it.
Right. And would there be any seeing of the computer that didn't involve you in your own seeing of it?
No.
So even without any intentionality to be more intimate with the seeing of the computer, whatever it is you're seeing, it's just baked into the activity of seeing.
Yeah, but it's veiled over a lot of the time.
Well, yeah. True. I'm moving towards something. So let me.
Okay.
So, so it's clear that, I may have a million thoughts about the things that I see, but the act of seeing anything is indivisible from the knowing of seeing, or the faculty of seeing. There's in my place here, there's a room filled with thousands of images because I've got hundreds of books all over the place and other stuff. But I'm seeing one image with 1,000 things in it.
Mhm.
And there isn't that image to be seen itself outside of my ability to see. I'm not saying those things don't exist. I'm just saying my experience of seeing them
Yeah.
and them are a singular continuum.
Mhm.
And that facility for seeing doesn't start at a gap from me. It's not like a moat of nothing and then, oh, seeing starts a centimeter away and all the stuff that I see.
Right.
So within the context of seeing, there's no indivisibility, there's no divisibility whatsoever. It's a singular, unified, for lack of a better word, activity. And it's not a big leap to do the same sort of thing with the sounds that we're hearing, right? In fact, it's not really that much of a leap to do with any of our sensory equipment.
Mhm.
There's the ingredients of what the sensory equipment perceives or senses, and then there's the faculty of sensing or perceiving, and none of that starts at a gap from me. So in the world of senses and perceptions, nothing is divided. I don't have to work to be intimate with any of the things that I sense and perceive. That's just the nature of my experience of those things. I can have a million thoughts about how it doesn't work, or wait a minute, or I don't understand, or I'm clear, I'm not clear. But despite whatever thought forms are there, that's what's happening with the things that I'm sensing and perceiving. So now, moving away from sensing and perceiving, go to thoughts themselves. And thought forms could take any possible form, from the craziest stuff to the most misinformed, contradictory stuff, to the stuff that really seems dead on factually true to the best of our ability to perceive or sense anything. But is there any separation at all between the content of a thought and this for thinking? Or is it the same dynamic as seeing and stuff being seen?
The voice, the audio broke up a little, but I think you were saying, is there any difference between the thought and thinking or something?
Right. Is there any separation? Is the dynamic in relation to thoughts and the faculty of thinking any different than the dynamic with seeing and stuff being seen? Or is it all of the same, all of what, a piece?
All the same.
And you're seeing that clearly. That's not just like, I'm trying to drive you to that answer and that's the right answer. That's clear.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, what possible element of our experience could we ever be separate from? Even if the thoughts are cloudy from seeing stuff. Right now, as we're talking about it, what could possibly?
Well, nothing could possibly, but it is possible to not see it or not be
Yes.
aware of it. Yeah.
Right. And so, but now as we are in conversation and we're seeing that clearly, we're kind of adding one more quote unquote layer of conditioning of this being understanding. So the next time we quote unquote forget, we'll be forgetting within a context that's more conditioned towards seeing it than in the past when we were forgetting in a context that was built on forgetting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So over the course of the intensives and also just our conversation over many, actually the last couple of years, I've thrown a lot of different, artificially created exercises and stuff to see this more. But from this new or this reaffirming of this, what would be assistive to you of your own design in reminding you of this?
You're asking me that?
Sounded like it. Sounds like that bird is answering them.
That bird is answering. I mean, I feel like it is already just happening
Yeah.
so much more frequently that it's hard for me to say what could help it happen more. I like being in the conversation. Like I feel like,
Cool.
yeah. I
Cool.
feel like it's helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's my intention to keep the conversation going in many different forms. Just wondering if like, oh, how do I facilitate being in the conversation when I'm not in the conversation, which was the impetus for these intensives in the first place. So I was just kind of brain drizzling here, trying, yeah, just trying to see, based on everything we've explored so much over the last few months, if something fresh doesn't come to mind that might be of value.
I mean, if we're talking kind of nuts and bolts, I know that like the 10-day in a row thing has just ended up being challenging for me schedule wise. Although I do end up listening to all of them, but and I don't know how Jimmy's feeling, like if maybe that just works for Jimmy's schedule, it's fine. Or because I know, Joel, you had said, that you wanted to kind of discuss about going forward.
Yeah, I have some ideas, and it'd be happy to set that up. I don't want to spend a lot of time on here because other people who are watching the video.
Right. I forgot.
I'd love to talk about logistics on how to make this even more accessible to people's schedules. Yeah. And it's good feedback to know that the, you know, although it could be refined, that the intensive nature of it has been helpful. That's great.
Yeah. And I do personally like enjoy or feel like I learn a lot when we're, you know, I feel like we've said this for the last several years, but like quote unquote real life examples. Like I know you brought your experience yesterday before the call. And then Jimmy was talking about managing the construction on his home and then, you know, asking me about, and then I relayed the story about my sister. It's like to note, because that's really pointing to the impact of this realization. Right? It's like,
Yeah.
one thing to talk about it, and that's good too. I mean, I like that too, to kind of talk about it more in the abstract.
Yeah, it's not like we're saying that, oh, if I have this experience, then if you're doing it correct, you're going to have this type of experience too. But what it does is it starts to, in each of our finite minds, open up possibilities of what to look for or what might be available.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Jimmy, any
What were the two questions or the two statements you said?
your mind is just like a sieve. Okay.
We aren't separate
Yeah.
beings, and all there is the here and now.
What was the first one?
There is no separate limited self or limited me.
Oh, I know. I remember my question then. So when you said there is no separate limited being,
Me, yeah, or self.
and then you said, something like you said, like you were referring to body mind. Or you said something, you threw body mind in there. That threw me off a little bit.
Okay, I was just trying to come up with different synonyms for the
Well,
same thing.
let me say why it threw me off is I think I understood there is no separate self. But there still feels like there's a body mind, like there's a tree out there and there's a body mind. So that threw me off a little bit. What threw me out, I guess the question is, are there body minds? There may not be separate thinkers, separate thinking going on, but still feels like there's body minds.
I didn't say there were no body minds. So there's no separate self. There's no separate body mind that's a thing unto itself any more than there's a chair you're sitting in unto itself. There's not the entirety of the universe plus that chair outside the universe, outside of consciousness.
Right, you're saying there's only one material, but it takes many different forms, so therefore
including a body mind and a finite user of that body mind.
yeah, and and beliefs and ideas and all kinds of stuff.
Those are the content of the mind. Those are thought forms. So there is no separated entity in and of itself that's splintered off from the whole. and the entirety of what we do experience is experienced here and now. And those they're not even really separate points. They're just part of the same braided understanding. So is there anything still as a sticking point that other than the coming and going of forgetting, is there anything specific you could point to that's a hurdle to seeing those points? Something kind of unresolved.
Not really.
Cool. And similar to what I asked Laura, anything that happened recently in your experience that would be a good expression of what we're talking about?
I just think this during this 10 days became more clear about experiences happening within the whole of, there's no separate, I think that like the made of is more clear, like that I've heard the whirlpool and the river comes so many times, but not so sure it felt the same way as it feels today. Just feels more made of the same, no matter where you point or look or. Yeah, I just the no separateness feels clear. Yeah, even though I look out and I see trees and I see a leg, that's okay. And I think that's another thing that maybe got clear is like there is all these different forms, but made of the same, call it intelligence or same energy or um, you know, it's okay that it's manifested into other forms. That's not, I don't have such a problem with it anymore, it seems, you know. Um,
Well. Yeah, I keep coming back to this because it was a huge revelation on a new and a deeper, it's not really levels, but I felt a deeper felt sense of understanding that I had from realizing this the other day. We're familiar, we've talked about them before, these optical illusion pictures that we look at. There's the lovers in the wine goblet. Do you see the lovers' faces, or do you see the wine goblet? Do you see the old woman, or do you see the young woman? Those types of things. Do you see the three-dimensional cubes going upwards, or do you see them going the other direction? Right. Okay, so another version of that is just look around you. Do you see a whole bunch of different objects? Or do you see one picture that contains a whole bunch of different objects? Now, it may not work for everybody, but as I answer that question for myself, a lot of stuff comes quickly into focus. No pun intended.
And also the one I like also to play around with is are we moving through time and space, or is just we are awareness and everything is that thing that Rupert did when he was going to the airport that day?
Yeah. Do you even notice the movement of time at all? Or is that only after the fact? Oh, yes, the hand on the clock is here now, but I'm only experiencing it here now.
Right.
We can't perceive the movement of time. We can only perceive an endless now.
Seems like we've just been getting it all wrong.
Or just a limited view of all of it.
Like the earth is flat idea.
Yeah. The earth is flat, the earth is round, the earth is a potato are all just thoughts known by the same mind, made of the same stuff.
Yeah, but don't we also actually know that the earth is not flat?
To the degree that we know stuff. Yeah. I think we always have to be willing to find out that all of it is
Yeah,
completely.
seems like it. Seems like that's ultimately the truth.
So a lot of this understanding is becoming really comfortable in realizing we don't know most of anything for sure. The only closest thing we know for sure is that we're here having an experience. Everything else is negotiable to some degree or another.
I almost find that more comforting than knowing, right?
Takes the pressure off for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I love the fact that we're illuminating the knowing element. Like that's what the intensive is about. That, maybe when Laura says, we kind of got it wrong, or we weren't looking in a certain direction of this presence of awareness, this knowingness, beingness, presence, just continually, there. And I don't think we ever thought about that, right? I don't think I ever thought about, there's this presence of awareness, this knowing quality, this knowingness in all experience. And that's right, that's the peaceful, open that Laura was speaking of. I don't think I had any words for it, or I just, yeah, that's good. That I like the fact that we meet and discuss that, and we're guided to just see that more clearly or feel into that. And I think that's why I keep coming back. Or why I look forward to the next hour, the next day. Is just that peacefulness of that beingness that is present.
Well, all of that was really lovely to hear, and my intention is to keep facilitating these things for now. And at the same time, if you consider it gently, what might you do in your own time away from these calls to also bring that into your experience?
I think that's naturally happening.
Perfect.
Naturally happening because of the intensives, in a sense, just because we're seeing other truths that exist that we may not have seen. I'm not saying it wasn't there at all, but just didn't maybe know what to call it, or just chatting about it is, I think it's pretty worthy in itself.
Fabulous. Okay, any new realizations or thoughts that came from considering those points? Or
No, there's so much to digest. So today I don't have any. Thank you though.
Sure.
For your effort. I really enjoy. I listened to the one of the YouTubes yesterday, and really enjoyed it.
We went pretty deep yesterday, huh?
Yeah. Amazing. But I just appreciate for Joel's effort, and then Laura and then Jimmy's deep, sharing of your deep understanding. I just enjoy it so much. Sorry, I cannot really participate in the discussion. I'm not born to do that. Maybe that could be or maybe if I say that, then this is a separate self, right?
It's just a temporary perspective. Yeah.
Anything is possible. So
Well, especially that, and thanks for your kind words, all of you. But underneath it, there isn't a separate me and a separate you. That this is the one being itself, sharing itself with itself in the form of us four and anybody else who's listening to the video. It may seem like a question or a statement arises in one of your personal minds, and then something is said, and then one of our personal minds hears it and then comes up with an answer. But all of that is just the activity of the same singular being, the same law, the same consciousness is just unfolding. Any ideas we come up with about how to share this or whatever, it's just the activity of that infinite being doing what it's doing.
You know, I told him in this construction project, and so there's 20, today there was 22 Nicaraguans, right? And I think they're working for like $4 an hour. But I swear they're just like, they're just happy. Like, and I'm sure they go through a lot of emotions, but okay, $4 an hour, they're away from their home, you know, they're making money to send home, and you know, all that stuff. But the truth is, take that all away, and they just seem like really no different. And I know there's differences, but just doesn't seem very different. What the root of it all just doesn't. And sure, we can have all these thoughts about, you know, how to separate it out, but I think.
Are you saying that Elon Musk isn't squillions of times happier than those Nicaraguan fellows working for you?
No.
Well, isn't that interesting to know?
Doesn't seem like it.
The very idea that happiness is an independent quality than circumstances it seems to me that's one of the most useful things the world could possibly know. Now the trick is in knowing it, and what I just said a few minutes earlier, where we're all a single being, knowing this. But that single being is also generating the thought that it'd be nice to share this with other seeming non-Nicaraguans.
I was just noticing when said that, like that our happiness is not tied to our circumstances. It just felt like there's still a lot of layers here that believes that my happiness, I noted, I was like, whoa, okay, wait a minute. That
Yeah.
could deserve some looking at. Yeah.
Maybe that's to make note of for the next intensive.
Yeah.
The permanent severing of the link between stable peace and happiness and ever-changing circumstances. Of course, a more pithy way of saying it might be easier to promote to people, but
Well, I like our secret little club.
I'm going to call an end to the recording, but I just want to make an announcement for you guys. So hang on one sec. Thank you, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the intensive and look forward to sharing next month if you're so inclined. And wishing you well in any case.